look at Ed in a sense that I think Chase does as well, that he's not an opponent, he's a mentor. But if you elect either Chase or myself, you're going to get a younger version of Ed, and we're going to protect those trees. So thank you.
Okay, two of the questions from two different people are about the same topic, so we'll try to cover them both in one question. One of them is asking about Dial-A-Ride, so this is about, both of these are transportation related. Dial-A-Ride, why can't we go see-me to TO, get these inner city options through Dial-A-Ride, that it's, it doesn't seem like that should be that hard to do. So can we do that? And the other one is, could we get a bus stop for Belmont and the Reserve up here at this corner somewhere? And what would that take?
Give an example of what they're doing in Ventura, and I'm going to relate it to seniors here, and particularly this, is Ventura has recognized that they need to get their citizens throughout the community more quickly. It helps business, it gets you all to the services that you need on an ongoing basis, but at the same time without having to deal with driving there yourself. So in Thousand Oaks, whether it's Dial-A-Ride, why shouldn't you be able to go to other areas? What happens if you're a podiatrist or some other things up in Camarillo? Participation to where these routes go is key. And if I can always use the expression, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. All right, now, what some senior groups, and I've participated with a few in the room here on these senior groups, is if we get a consensus as to what those routes would look like, and then communicate that to a council member, that's the only way it gets done. And I'm telling you this in terms of senior housing. I'm involved in the senior housing committee. The only way things get done is through participation at the senior level to make very clear and exact things. So in this case, if it's routes, if there's 6 or 7 routes, that's what you need to, if I use the word, sell to the staff and to the council, is that these are the routes that our constituents, our customers are demanding. So if I said it's a simple answer, it's simply getting in front of the people who actually need these routes, convincing other council members. Because think about this, many times on a council, you're trying to convince the other 4 to vote a certain way. And if I've got a predisposition towards seniors, which I do, hopefully that influence will transition to the other 4 people. But it gets down to seniors creating the routes and then having someone who pushes for seniors. Seniors need a bigger piece of the pie.
Okay, moving on down the line.
Well, that is one of the things that I've proposed, is to move forward with consolidating the transit system out here in East County. We pay a lot of money here in Thousand Oaks for the transit system, but it doesn't work as effectively as it should. So if we got together with the other cities out here in East County, Moore Park, Camarillo, Simi Valley, pull together the resources, we would be able to have better services. And with Dial-A-Ride, that would mean that those connections could be made more seamlessly. And another positive of it is that we could actually probably get more federal money for transit. As if the federal government, members of Congress, we got 2 members of Congress that represent East County here. They're going to look at that as a whole consolidated transit authority and say, okay, well, let's put some money toward this. It has a decent ridership. There are people using it, and so let's do it. And as far as a bus stop over here, that would be one of the things that I would work with the Transit Commission to look at and city staff to look at. It shouldn't actually be hard to do that, but those are the little things that can be done. And a lot of times the little things don't get done, but that is one thing that I would make sure that I did.
Well, I'll let Rob, same question?
Sure.
Well, let me let Rob answer it first, unless it was aimed at Chase.
No.
Okay.
The answer that we saw at the beginning was this idea that you need to put together something and you've got to come together, and then we're going to try to get the other council members to. That is not serving the public. Our job is to come and find out from you what you want done and make that happen. And that is the difference between someone who's enmeshed in the government policies as opposed to somebody who's a typical citizen like all of you. I would also add that we're so concerned with not uprooting our oak trees, but yet we take no focus in the sense that we tend to uproot our seniors. And this is the fastest growing segment of our population, and it's what needs the most attention. Dan will tell you that he participated in the 50-year visioning plan with 10s and 20 meetings, countless, And in that visioning meeting, not one single thing was addressed towards seniors. This is not a focus of the council. It needs to be. And if I'm elected as your councilman, I will make those things happen. And you will have access. All of you have my cell phone number. Thank you.
Did you have a follow-up on that, Pat?
I don't know how it goes, but, Jackie Irwin was here, and we approached the dial-a-ride issue. Do you recall?
I wasn't in the room.
Oh, okay.
I feel like it.
And at that time, Jackie said, no problem, we will deal with this, because it's been an ongoing problem for
Dial-a-ride to senior, or which part of
whichever
Dial-a-ride?
way it goes. I'm not specific, it's just that they're interchanged, that, if I wanna go to see me from here, I can do it, without the fact that I can, at this point in time, my pulmonologist happens to be over there and I can't get there.
Okay, so you're saying Jackie didn't take care of something she said she would.
That's
Of course, she
exactly-
was running for office at the time,
Right.
I will remind you. So, you know, we'll bring it up again, and I'm sure you're all hearing us on that. To all three of you, can I ask one question? I'll start with Rob, since you're the educator. Someone has asked, what kinds of opportunities for continued education are in Thousand Oaks, and how would you like to see those expand or decrease or whatever? Usually that's adult ed or continuing.
Adult education is what the question was, I'm assuming?
Yeah, I asked the question.
Yeah.
I was referring to things like auditing courses compared to taking courses for credit, which would require payment of tuition. Now, that can be expensive for some of us, and I was wondering if there would be any possible tuition remuneration for us. In other words, where tuition could be partially paid so that we could take courses and possibly earn a degree in something.
That'd be a wonderful idea. This is something that the Conejo Unified School District and the Parks Department would be deeply involved in. Certainly those would be the folks that we'd have to speak to have that happen. I would say in relation to those classes, they're absolutely important in our community. We need to focus on getting those. I like the idea of not just having to audit it, but being credited for it. I think that would be great. What's the point if you want to pursue a further degree? I would be in favor of pursuing that.
So would there be any way for us, for some of the tuition to be partially paid or so?
On a need basis, absolutely. I think that would be helpful. Sure.
Did either of you want to comment on
We good?
continuing subsidized or continuing education for seniors?
I think if seniors needed to have a more continuing education, we should find a way to pay for it. Again, we have to look at the budget, make those smart choices. The continuing education is over at what was Waverly School. It's way up that hill. Kind of hard to get to, so we may have to look at finding a way to have some satellite location or something that's more accessible to people, because it was hard for me to get to, so because it's way up that hill. But I actually would like to see it be subsidized, and I think we need to work with our state and federal representation to make that happen. We've got a member of Congress, we've got an assembly member, we've also got state senators, so I would get together with them and see if we could get block grants to make that happen. Our budget is so pressed that it would really might be a little bit difficult to do that, but as far as block grants go, that would be what I would pursue. I've had an opportunity to meet all three of our representatives that represent Thousand Oaks at the state and federal level. They're very open to listening. So I would actually sit down with them and see what we could do about that. But I really do think we should have some subsidized education for seniors. The seniors are changing. They want more education. You can't look at it as getting old. You're turning to solid gold.
Thank you.
If I had to create a list of things that I believe that are most important for seniors, first of all, it wouldn't be saying that continuing education is important, it is. But if you look at the city budget, a shrinking city budget, if we had to take those subsidy dollars, where would I put them? I had to rank them, and Dan, you could only pick one. Senior housing. Senior housing.
Wow.
Yes. senior housing is the biggest struggle that we get. Okay? Maybe not people who live here, but go talk to the 175 residents out of Valsito.
Yeah.
Go spend an afternoon like I have at the ranch or other mobile home parks, and you ask them the question, we've only got a certain amount of money for subsidies. Ma'am, sir, where would you like it allocated? Housing, housing, housing is what they would respond to. Now, I'm licensed instructor in 27 states, so education is in my blood. But I know in a shrinking budget, if you can only allocate money, where would I put them? It would be for senior housing. In a budget that had unlimited or more money available, absolutely. I'd love to be able to see seniors get their degrees. I think that would be great. I have friends whose parents are in their 60s and 70s and finally got their BA degree because their kids and grandkids got it before they did. But they wanted to make sure, literally wanted to make sure that grandma and grandpa got their degree. But in a world of shrinking things, I would allocate subsidies towards housing. Not to say I don't like education, I do. But sometimes you have to make difficult choices. And what I'm hearing from our constituents is subsidies should be geared more towards senior housing.
I'm going to come back to that subject as my last question, but the second to last question before I lose your interest is going to be a simple answer from the three of you, because this question was so long and difficult that I'm going to boil it down. They're trying to ascertain the level of conservatism versus liberalism in your philosophy of government. So looking at, very commonly, people go from city council to state, federal government. I mean, it is a stepping stone. So the question from the field here is, how conservative are you, how liberal are you? On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the most conservative, 10 being the most liberal, could you give me a number? Or you can just say decline to state, because this is too convoluted, but I didn't want to ignore the question, whoever put this one forward, so.
As a Goldwater trade person, you'd say he's the most conservative person on the food chain. Economically, yes, very conservative. My training is in finance, it's conservative. Social issues, though, some would say, Dan, you're a Democrat living in a Republican's body. You have political dysphoria. What are you? So I'd say socially, I would tend to be more on the Democratic side, but in terms of the question about conservatism, probably a 2.
Chase, would you like to answer that, or decline, or? Okay.
Oh, that's fine. Okay, so I was, my family background, that's a lot of FDR people, so, but not necessarily, for this office, I think you have to sort of balance in between the two. You have to spend smartly, which is more conservative, but you also have to make sure that you don't leave people out of the gap like seniors. So I probably would say I'm in the middle on spending, because I believe you have to it's about making choices. And I'm not gonna leave anybody out of the gap, but I'm not gonna go around overspending either. If you wanna talk about social issues, I'm probably more of an 8 there as far as being more lean towards the liberal side. Because again, I come from a more socially progressive background. But I think spending is where it counts most, and I'm on the middle in that.
My political background is as mixed as my theological background. My Catholic parents couldn't come to their Protestant son's ordination because their Jewish godson's bar mitzvah. True story. But I would say that I am a Reagan conservative. Thank you.
Okay, last question, and we're going to be right on time. The last question, I'm going to go back to the housing issue, and it's particularly senior housing. I happen to be on the SAMP housing team, so I do know a little bit about this. But let's just say the question was phrased asking, about condos on Teal Boulevard. I know we're all looking at that in the newspaper articles. But let me just take it a little bit out of that realm and just say, if you were going to create a housing project that would be good for seniors, what would you like to see? If you could just create one and that's plausible, that we can actually do in the next 5 years.
5 years, even if you were in the planning department now, 5 years would not be enough time. So let me just tell you my vision, because I've been to these places, and you all have been to them too. By a show of hands, how many of you have been to the Camarillo Leisure Village? Okay. How about Seal Beach down there? Okay. I have a stepbrother who just recently, okay, he's 57 years old, bought a place there. I also have a very good friend. She's 97 years old and has been there in the Seal Beach facility for, I want to say, at least 30 years. That concept or that product, if you look at it as an offering, that product works. You can walk around in a safe environment. You can have your animals. You can communicate with people of a similar age. It works, folks. And some would say, well, you know, we don't have room for it. Well, we'll find room for it because that product offering nationwide has worked. And I've been to 3 of them just in Southern California. And I've always asked the question, and I say this in the senior housing meetings, why can't we have one of those? Why not? You know why? Because the attention hasn't been given to seniors. For all the last 30 years, it's been about the 3-bedroom, 2-bath house with a white picket fence and the kids. That's where I'm coming from. But the attention now has to shift. You're the customers, you're the taxpayers. We need to address the needs of that group, the greatest group. Okay, now look at my parents are both gone. The greatest generation, the World War II generation. Okay, how do you take care of them? We did it in the 60s and 70s by building wonderful facilities or wonderful communities with schools. Yes, that is you. Now the question is, how do we shift that? So what the product looks like, it's leisure village type concept here in Thousand Oaks.
Okay, well, when we talk about communities like that, that comes at an expense. And seniors I've talked to, they can't always afford living like Leisure Village. They can't afford that. So if I was able to build a development for seniors that worked, it would be mixed income. We're going to have a variety of seniors there from different incomes. That way you can sustain the development, but there's not going to be a gap where you have seniors, I can't afford to live there. You shouldn't have to have a lower level of safety, public safety, because you may be in a lower income bracket. That is something I very strongly believe, especially when you're a senior. We have to honor our elders. And I am a big proponent of mixed income housing, and I think that would work well for seniors. We can't just focus on one income group. We have to try to target every income group and get them in. It's about need, and sometimes middle income to lower income seniors have a need that is different than people who can pay to live in a higher income area. So let's make sure we're focusing on all income brackets, not just one.
Did you want to ask a question?
I want to make a comment. To my knowledge, and I could be wrong, 2 projects that looked like they were going to do something on Hillcrest, and I can't think of the other places, were shot down by the neighbors. Now, I was a realtor locally for 25 years, so I see both sides of it. But how is this going to get done with the neighbors? I mean, I think it's, you know what I mean? How are you going to be able to persuade the people who live down the block? For instance,
No, I understand. It's the NIMBY concept, not in my backyard.
Yeah.
The idea with working through the intensity of NIMBY, not in my backyard, is to have an advocate, somebody who's clearly focused on that will push for that in the city council, where that would be a priority. This is one area where I'm in full agreement with Dan Roundtree. I'd like to see this happen in our community, and I think it needs to be an absolute focus and a priority for any councilman that steps forward into this position. If, again, as I restate that quote by Russell Kirk, politicians are actors performing a script written by the audience. When I sat with all the business developers who wanted to do the mixed use, high density, multi-use, their comment to me was, I said, what's the disconnect between the developers and the citizenry? It seems as though you guys aren't getting along. And they said, oh, that's not the case. I said, I've been walking door to door, and that's exactly the case. I work for AC Nielsen, and we did projected data. If you look, this is a major issue in the city, that the developers are not connected with the citizenry. And his comment to me, one of the folks to my right, I can't remember his name, his comment to me was, oh, anyone over 50 has no vision. And immediately I looked at him and I said, you're obviously not running for office. Now I'm going to tell you, if a representative stands in front of you and promises you something and doesn't fulfill it, as you pointed out, don't re-elect them. And so as we stand up here, if we give you a commitment, you hold us to that. You're writing the script. And I'm telling you right now, and I know that Dan and Chase feel the same way, there is not going to be a council member who will survive in this city who does not make the senior concerns absolute priority. It's that simple. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all three. I want to say a few things before we go today, and most of you can stick around a little bit for follow-up questions one-on-one. Please, everyone here, thank you so much for coming. I know some of you have already filled out your ballots or are ready to. And if you brought them, I'll personally turn them in for you if you need it or put it in the mail. But it's really important that everyone here who heard them tell 10 people what you heard today. You know, call your friends. A lot of them are not going to show up. Oh, it's a small election. Please get people out. That's the main thing. Tell them you heard 3 great candidates who deserve to be voted for or against, but vote, for heaven's sakes. And thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Somebody